Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. Today we are talking all about titles,
They're
which we don't
fun.
really talk about on the channel, not for nothing.
No, and it's interesting because, a title is obviously so important, and complicated.
Yeah, well, I think it's, for me anyway, it's the hardest thing about a new work in progress or even a new client book. I always second guess titles, but I'm terrible at coming up with good ones. So I do spend a lot of time thinking about them, and I know a lot of authors do. But it's funny, I just saw a tweet, I think a couple weeks ago. Is it a tweet anymore, or what do we call it? I just saw a tweet that said all three of this author's books went from draft to shelf, and the titles never changed, which is super rare.
Super rare. I have a few books that have done that. And I have a few authors who are just can be absolutely brilliant with titles. And that's happened for them. But yeah, that is, in fact, one of the first things we always say to an author if we're discussing title before going out on submission is it's likely to change, so let's just find something really great. But when we go out on submission, when authors go out to agents, the titles do matter.
Oh, I think so too. It's funny. Well, actually, I feel like it depends on the genre a lot of times too. Like romance titles are really important, cozy mysteries titles are really important, picture books the title is really important. But I feel like there are some genres where the title does not like win you over as much.
Women's fiction and thrillers are two areas that I represent where I find titles to be very hard because taken
Right.
out of the genre, taken without a book cover, those titles can be incredibly bland.
Yeah, I almost feel like the genres where the hook is of paramount importance is where the title is super important. So like rom-coms, the hook is always,
But rom-coms are fun books, so the titles are fun titles.
yeah,
Thrillers
and
are not known for being fun.
no, it's usually like the same variation of the same title over and over again. So the title is the first impression for every book, right? Like usually when we send our submissions, the title might be in the subject line or it's in the first paragraph of our pitch. And same for authors to agents and editors. It's kind of like the frontward facing thing. So it has to give an impression of what the book is. It has to like be the first little inkling that might hook the reader, but it's never set in stone, which is the hard part.
Right. But it has to, when you say it's the first impression, it has to present the vibe of the book. And I think we've all had experiences, especially at the query stage, where we get something, it has this title, but the title doesn't match the genre or the vibe of the book. And it might be a really fantastic title, but it's given me the wrong impression of what the book is. And then when I go in to read the book, I lose enthusiasm faster because
Right.
I went in with a certain mindset.
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily name a picture book The Girl on the Train. Like it just, by this point, especially with how deep titles tend to go in certain genres, that you wouldn't like take the constraints of one and apply it to a different genre because it gives a different vibe, it gives a different impression.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was a romance submission, and this was a bajillion years ago. And the title was something like, The Frog Who Turned Into a Prince. And no matter how I read that, that was a picture book title. And
Yeah.
I could not even request the book because it just felt so misplaced. That title felt so misplaced.
Yeah, and for us, it gives an impression of what that book might be like.
Yes,
So
yes. And for readers too.
yeah, yeah, it does. So I think the thing that every author needs to know from querying to publication is that you can like your title has a very strong possibility of changing, and it's very important that you are flexible. Not
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, don't get too attached to your title.
Yeah, not every title is going to change. And if you really feel strongly about a title, there's always a conversation to be had. But there are a lot of different people weighing in on your book once it's out of your hands, right? Like once it's with an agent, the two of you are trying to make the best, package for submission. Once you have a publisher, there's sales teams, marketing teams, publicity teams, you know, editorial team, everybody is weighing in on, is that the best title? So when you have all these different opinions, all these different areas of expertise, it's likely that it will at least be tweaked somehow, right? Like, and I've seen titles go from changing the to N, or, you know, vice versa or whatever. And I've seen titles just completely get scratched, and we start from, you know, having a list of 10 and then we're doing another list of 10. We just can't find the right one.
Yeah.
It's always a conversation because it is part of the package that publishers are looking to pitch to readers. And
Yeah,
needs to
and
be perfect.
also the title you place on it might fit the genre, but when the publisher gets the book and goes to market and sell the book, they might have a different idea of the vibe that they see the audience having. It might be the same genre. It just has a different vibe. But also keep in mind that in the time you write your book till your book sells to a publisher, a million things might have happened, including someone else published a book with your title, which makes your title no longer viable. And then there are those conversations of, okay, well, there are other books with this title, but they're more than 10 years old, so we feel comfortable using it again. I mean, it is a lot of conversations that
I've
happen.
had it where the title that we had contained something that became slang, so we changed the title.
Yes.
Because language is fluid, it's always changing, things mean different things as you go on. So there's so many factors that go into what is the perfect thing to call this book.
Yeah. Yeah. You want a great title. You want to work hard to come up with a great title, but you also want to be flexible to where that title can lead.
I also want to say, for those of you that are like me and put a ton of pressure on yourself to have the perfect title, I don't think in the querying stage it's the end of the world, that it matters that much. I feel like if you go into it knowing this will likely change at some point, then you will have that conversation with someone on your team. But I also would not query untitled. I wouldn't query something like Jessica said, where it's just so clearly mismatched or you're clearly phoning it in. Try and have a title, something that fits the book, but it does not have to be perfect from the query.
And not overly generic.
Yeah.
Like I used to see the title in my query inbox all the time, Second Chances, which in my mind became the absolute most generic romance placeholder title. So you do want to put some effort into it, but I don't know how many times we've actually had these conversations at the publication stage with the publisher and the author where everybody is like, it feels like there's a perfect title here, but it's out of our reach. And we never really found it. We just found a title. Everybody felt like this works. This is good. This is strong. We're good with it.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
And there are so many different avenues that every book can take in terms of title. So it's just the one that feels right at some point.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I think that's pretty much it.
That's really all about titles.
Yeah, so we hope
everything we got. That's all we got on titles.
That's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you back here next week, and we will be talking all about something else.
Bye.